This morning at 9:20 a.m., several of our warrant squad members, along with a uniformed officer, responded to the unit block of Sulky Court, S-U-L-K-Y Court in Randallstown to serve several several arrest warrants on a female and male subject that resided in that apartment. The male was wanted for assault, and the female was wanted on an arrest warrant for failure to appear on cases related to an incident March of this year, where she was charged criminally with disorderly conduct, resisting arrest, and numerous other traffic charges. Officers repeatedly knocked on the apartment door. They heard inside the apartment the voices of a male and a female and a crying child. They repeatedly identified themselves as police officers, announcing their presence and their intent to serve arrest warrants at that location. No one answered the door, but again, these voices could be heard. These officers stood in that position for approximately 10 minutes trying to get the occupants to answer the door. And again, I want to remind you, the officers conducted their investigation, research, and determined with accuracy that the subjects wanted on these arrest warrants resided in that apartment. There was a point in time where one of the officers obtained a key to enter the apartment. Upon opening the door slightly, the officers could clearly see a female seated on the floor that they recognized to be the female wanted in the arrest warrant. It was at that point the officers determined that the female was wielding around with a shotgun, pointed it at one of the three officers. At that time, she had a 5-year-old in her arm as well, seated on the floor. The officers retreated, took a position of cover and safety in the hallway outside the apartment, immediately summons tactical personnel who began hours-long dialogue with the individual. During that dialogue and conversation, she repeatedly pointed a long gun at the police officers, the tactical personnel. My personnel showed great firearms restraint during this dialogue. There was a point at around 3 p.m. this afternoon that the suspect in this case, Korryn Gaines, pointed again the shotgun, the long gun, at our personnel, advised them that if they did not retreat or leave, she was going to kill them. Perceiving not only her actions, but the words she used, we discharged one round at her. In turn, she fired several rounds back at us. We fired again at her, striking and killing her. Tragically, in this circumstance, the child that was also in the dwelling was struck by a round. We do not know at this moment in time whether or not that round was fired by our weapons or by the weapons possessed by Miss Gaines. That child has been transported to an area hospital with non-life-threatening wounds and is being treated at this time.
The name of the female suspect is Korryn, Korryn Gaines, Gaines. John, do you have a middle name for her? She's 23 years old. I do not have a name yet of the male suspect, but as soon as we get that, we'll put that out to you as well. I'm trying to think if there's anything that the chief did not mention to you. I mean, and you know our procedures. The names of our officers who were involved will be released after 48 hours per our FOP agreement. It is an ongoing investigation. One thing I would note is it's not clear whether we have any body camera footage of this incident. As you know, our body camera program is just a few weeks old. We are looking to see if any of the officers involved in this case was wearing a camera, but as you probably know, only a few officers are wearing them at this point, but we'll find that out. Yes?
What is the status of the male suspect, and how did he play in the whole situation here?
The male suspect, as the chief explained, was wanted on a warrant for assault. He was also in the apartment. I'm not sure what his relationship is with her. He fled the apartment with the other child. He was apprehended by our officers, so he's in custody.
So there were two
There were two children in the apartment, a 1-year-old and a 5-year-old, both boys, I believe. It was the 5-year-old that was struck by one of the rounds and has been hospitalized.
So the male suspect is in custody right now?
That's correct.
Was there any indication, did she say anything or threaten the child that she was holding, or she threatened the officers? Right. Is that all that's happened?
I'm not aware of her threatening the child. The child was with her throughout the duration of this event. She did threaten the officers, both with the gun and verbally.
The 5-year-old was with her?
Yes, the 5-year-old was with her. The 1-year-old is the child that the male suspect took with him when he left the apartment.
Was she holding the child when the firing began?
I'm not sure about that. That's something I'll have to ask the major. Exactly where was that child positioned?
What is the condition of the child?
He has non-life-threatening injuries. I don't know what his official position is in hospital jargon, but we do know that he's expected to be okay.
The 1-year-old, since he was with the male, where is the 1-year-old now? With Child Protective Services? Or?
I don't know the answer to that question.
And will the 5-year-old, once released from the hospital, do you know?
I don't know the answer to that question. That's something we'll look into when we do our follow-ups. The status of the children.
How many officers were at the scene?
There were 3 officers that went to the apartment to serve the warrant. When she pointed the gun at the officers and they retreated, they called for support, and that brought out additional support, including the tactical officers who dealt with the barricade for the rest of the afternoon.
Is this the first fatal shooting this year?
Allison, I honestly can't remember. John?
Not 100%, I think it is.
We'll check that. I just haven't had time to do that.
The spelling of the woman's name is Korryn. Middle name is Shandawn. Last name is Gaines.
Can you say the middle name again?
It's an odd name, yes.
Shandawn?
Shandawn.
Shandawn.
Thank you.
And it's the unit, it was the unit block of, Sulky Court. The unit block of Sulky Court is the address that we're talking about here.
People evacuated around that area?
That's correct. When the barricade began, the apartment building was evacuated for the safety of all of the other residents, yes.
I know the chief excused himself, but
yes.
His reaction to all of this, what was he saying or what was he thinking as this was all going on, and then finally getting to this conclusion?
Well, any situation involving a barricade is potentially dangerous for our officers. Any situation involving a child is a cause of special concern for the chief. We are very relieved that the child was not seriously injured. We are, of course, extremely upset at an event like this. We do not like to be in a position of having to use lethal force, but this was a situation where our officers exercised patience for hours and hours. They faced repeated threats from this woman, and finally it reached a point where she verbalized that if we did not leave, that she was going to kill the officer. And this was one of those unfortunate cases where there really wasn't a lot of choice at that point in the altercation.
Did they have her? I'm sorry.
Why do you not know whether there's body camera footage?
We just haven't had a chance yet to find out from all of the officers that were there, from their supervisors, whether camera footage, whether someone was there who was wearing a camera.
Did they have her in sight the whole time? How were they communicating with her?
I believe she was, John, I believe she was in sight, but that may be a question that if you want to clarify the position of people, that I'm going to want to go talk to the major about.
Have to research.
Yeah, let us talk to the major about that, because I don't want to paint a false picture, and it's hard. I really can't answer that without going back and picking his brain a little bit more.
The male suspect, has he been charged yet with anything, and also do you have an age range?
I don't have any identifying information on the male suspect at this point, and as you know, someone has 24 hours to see a court commissioner, so he's been arrested, but whether he's been charged yet or not, we haven't had time to figure that out just yet.
Is the child of the woman, or
I
is it
don't.
a different relationship?
I do not know. I cannot confirm what the children's relationship is to her or to the male suspect.
I think the chief may have mentioned this, but did she fire on the officers
Yes, she fired 2 rounds.
after the first shot that the officers shot, then she returned fire? Was there a...
My understanding, here's my understanding of the way it happened. She's been pointing the gun at officers on and off all afternoon as they encourage her to come out peacefully. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, there's a point where she aims the weapon directly at one of the officers in particular and says, "If you don't leave, I'm going to kill you." At that point, one of the officers fired his service weapon, and she returned fire. Anything else?
Did that bullet strike her, the first bullet?
I don't know. I can't answer that question. All I can tell you is that she was struck by the bullet. Yes, but I don't.
You say that she was aiming her weapon at the officers on and off throughout the afternoon.
That's correct.
Is that to say the officers were in the room with her, or through an open door, or how is this possible?
John, do you know the answer to that?
Well, throughout the day, obviously we weren't always in the house.
Right.
So I believe at some point she was pointing, I mean, she can see officers going back and forth all around the house. So we can clarify that.
Let us clarify that. I mean, it seems like you have some questions about the position. Excuse me. It seems like you have some questions about the positioning of the officers and the woman during the course of this event. I mean, we're dealing with basically a garden apartment style setup. Is that correct? I think the way it's been described to me is that you're dealing with an apartment, with 4 apartments around a landing. So that's the setting we're talking about here. When I leave, I will ask the commander who was in charge of this incident what the specific positions were, so that we can kind of clarify that for you.
And was it more than one officer that fired at her?
It was one officer that fired. Yes. Okay? All right, very good. I will clean up this article, get it posted and sent out to all of you. You have the name of the woman, which is the most important name that we can give you. And as soon as the man is charged, we'll release that. I don't know when that will be. It may not be tonight.
Later tonight.
Or tomorrow. That one could be tomorrow. Okay?
Well, just for clarification too, about the male suspect fleeing with the other child.
Yes.
Did that happen prior to the shooting?
Prior to.
Okay, so he got out before.
Yes. Yes. Yes, he left pretty early in the incident. Before he left, and then the barricade started. She wouldn't come out, and that's what, then it became a barricade with her inside with the weapon and the child.